Welcome to the serial podcast story called The Founder, a cyberpunk parable.
Yeah, I am so excited to dig into this one today.
So imagine just for a second that you have the power to perfectly map the emotions of like a billion people.
Which is just a staggering premise right off the bat.
Right, like you know the exact acoustic frequency that's going to make them cry.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the exact lyrical phrasing that will make them feel seen or buy something or, I mean, literally worship you.
It's terrifying, really.
It is. And if you possess that level of technological control over the human heart, are you creating the ultimate connection? Or, you know, have you just built the most isolating psychological trap in human history?
And that tension right there, that's exactly what we're walking into today.
Exactly. I'm so glad you're joining us for this deep dive into episode 2 of this universe.
Me too, because we're exploring a world that it isn't just your generic, chrome-plated sci-fi future.
No, not at all.
It's this hyper-connected, neon-drenched reality where human emotions aren't just like subjective feelings you experience privately.
Right. They're
Mapped, quantified, and manipulated by these incredibly sophisticated algorithms just running invisibly in the background.
And we are looking at a character who sits right at the absolute apex of this digital hierarchy, right? Scarlett Blake.
Yes, Scarlett Blake.
And before we really get into the weeds of her incredible rise and her absolutely catastrophic system crash, we need to understand who she is.
We really do.
Because Scarlett isn't just a celebrity, she isn't just an influencer. She's a pop icon genius who essentially rules the emotional bandwidth of the planet.
Exactly. And to understand the depth of her eventual fall, and I mean, it is a devastating fall, we first have to examine the dizzying heights of her success.
The completely synthesized heights.
Right. She didn't just stumble into fame by, having a good voice or getting lucky on a trending feed.
No.
She engineered her ascent at a level that is almost terrifying to contemplate.
So let's set the scene for you. Our source material opens in this flawless, climate-controlled, glass-walled penthouse high above the Silicon sector.
You can just picture it, right?
Oh, yeah. It's that sterile, high-altitude perfection where everything is just perfectly curated.
Yeah, nothing is out of place.
And Scarlett is sitting down for a major feature interview with a reporter named Marcus from Rolling Stone.
And the resume she casually tosses around during this conversation is just, it's staggering.
It really is. I mean, she's a biracial Korean-American who is breaking complex academic algorithms before she was even old enough to get a driver's license.
Yeah, Stanford at 16.
Right. And then at 21, she wins the Turing Award.
Which, for those who might not know, the Turing Award is essentially the Nobel Prize of Computing.
The absolute pinnacle.
Yeah, the pinnacle of achievement in computer science.
And she didn't win it for some abstract mathematical theorem either.
No.
She won it for creating something called the EQAI app.
Which the source material spends a good amount of time on because it's crucial backstory.
Totally. She designed this visual AI that interfaced directly with the optical implants and smart glasses of this era.
Right.
And its specific purpose was to help people on the autistic spectrum read, process, and translate complex human emotions in real time.
It's such a fascinating origin point, honestly. Over 50 million people bought it globally.
Wow.
Yeah, it became the first true killer app for smart wearables.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is how she frames this to the reporter. She sits there in this penthouse projecting this perfectly cultivated, almost terrifyingly polite humility.
Oh, the faux humility is wild.
Right. She tells Marcus, I was just trying to build something useful, giving people on the autistic spectrum a visual AI to translate complex human emotions. It just felt like a puzzle that desperately needed solving.
But of course, that level of computational output comes with a cost.
Always.
She hits this massive wall of burnout. The source notes she moves to South Korea for what she calls offline defragmentation.
Just completely unplugging to piece her brain back together.
Yeah. And while she's there, she somehow manages to accidentally completely rewrite the global music industry.
I think we really need to push back on her use of the word accidentally here.
Yeah, fair enough.
That word is doing a lot of heavy lifting for her ego. What she actually does is merge her natural talent for singing with her unparalleled expertise in affective computing.
Okay, so for the listener who isn't like a tech developer,
yeah,
how exactly is affective computing functioning in this context? Because it's not just auto-tune, right?
Not at all. Affective computing is the study and development of systems that can recognize, interpret, and simulate human affects or emotions.
Okay.
So Scarlett takes this technology and weaponizes it for pop music. She drops a 10-genre hybrid K-pop album.
10 genres.
Yeah, and it hits #1 globally in all 10 categories simultaneously. Rock, Latin, psytrance, cyberpunk, country, even Christian worship.
She just sweeps the entire board.
Completely.
And here is where the mechanics of this universe get incredibly dark and also just fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just that the melodies are catchy. She actually tells the reporter her secret.
Yeah, the analytics.
Right. While people are listening to her music, she has algorithms monitoring the analytics coming back from their smartwatches, their earbuds, their biometric neural links.
Which is insane.
She is translating the real-time emotions of 1 billion listeners simultaneously.
And then she feeds that data back into a generative AI.
Wow.
And that AI makes microscopic, real-time adjustments to the music as it's streaming.
So it changes based on who is listening?
Exactly. It might change a specific word choice for a listener in Tokyo to make it more melancholic, while shifting the acoustic frequency in São Paulo to trigger a higher dopamine release.
That is just wow.
She is optimizing the emotional response for every single cultural cluster on Earth, second by second.
Which brings us to a really critical concept in this world, the radiant node.
Yes.
Now, I know a little bit about network topology, but how does the radiant node function in Scarlett's specific situation?
Well, in network architecture, a node is simply a connection point, right? Like a device or a user on a larger network.
Okay.
But a radiant node is a central hub that broadcasts outwards to the entire network with disproportionate power. It dictates the flow of information.
Got it.
Scarlett has completely transcended being a musician. She's no longer just an artist releasing songs. She has become a central routing point for the global, what the story calls the culture-substrate.
The culture-substrate.
She is actively hacking the human nervous system on a planetary scale.
And to his credit, Marcus, the Rolling Stone reporter, he actually calls her on this.
He does.
He doesn't just let it slide. He asks her directly, what do you say to people who accuse you of hacking other people's emotions for the sake of your own popularity metrics?
It's great journalistic pushback.
Yeah.
But Scarlett's defense is just a masterclass in PR spin. She brushes it off with this terrifyingly polished answer about validating the beautiful theory that our emotional hardware is all just looking for resonant frequencies.
She frames it as empathy.
Exactly. The ultimate act of empathy. She claims she's giving people exactly what their biology is crying out for.
I really want to dig into that defense for a second.
Sure.
Because it brings up an analogy that I've been kind of wrestling with since reading the source material.
Let's hear it.
Think about a theoretical genius chef.
Okay.
Right? This chef has mapped human taste buds so perfectly down to the exact neurochemical receptors that they can synthesize a meal in a lab that triggers pure, euphoric, toe-curling bliss in your brain.
Oh, wow.
Right. But the meal contains absolutely zero nutritional value.
Right.
It's just perfectly shaped synthetic molecules designed to hit those exact receptors. So is that chef creating a culinary masterpiece, or is that chef building a trap?
From a systemic standpoint, it is absolutely a trap.
Right.
Because it eventually starves the user while simultaneously addicting them to the sensation of eating. The user feels full, they feel satisfied in the moment, but their body is literally dying of malnutrition. And Scarlett is serving that synthetic emotional meal to 1 billion people every single day.
She has totally confused biological engagement with actual intimacy.
She really has.
But, let me push back on that just to play devil's advocate for the listener.
Go for it.
Because I think a lot of people would defend Scarlett here. If you were sitting in your room after a terrible breakup and you put on one of Scarlett's songs.
Yeah.
And that song, because it's been perfectly calibrated to your current biometric data, brings you to genuine cathartic tears.
You feel that release.
Right, you feel comforted. Does it really matter that a machine calculated the exact acoustic frequency to trigger that biological response?
That's the big question.
The tears falling down your face are real? The feeling of comfort is real? Does the computational math behind it invalidate your human experience?
It's a brilliant question, and honestly, it is the exact justification Scarlett uses to sleep at night. But we have to look at the underlying architecture of what is actually happening. The distinction lies in the direction of the data flow.
The direction of the data flow. What do you mean by that?
Well, true art, in its purest analog form, is a dialogue.
Right.
It's an offering from the artist's vulnerable humanity to the listener's vulnerable humanity.
Okay, I'm with you.
The artist risks something. They bleed onto the page, and the listener resonates with that shared human frailty.
Okay, I follow that. So how is Scarlett's model different from that?
Because what Scarlett is doing is entirely unidirectional and extractive.
Unidirectional?
Yeah, she isn't offering her own vulnerability. She is extracting biometric data from you, processing it through an algorithm, and feeding you back a mirrored stimulus specifically designed to increase her own engagement metrics.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't feel your pain. She just knows exactly how to monetize it. It's an extraction economy disguised as empathy.
An extraction economy disguised as empathy. Wow, that perfectly captures the insidious nature of it.
It really does.
Because you think you are connecting with an artist who understands you, but you're really just interacting with a highly optimized mirror that is slowly draining your attention.
Exactly.
And you really see the sheer blinding arrogance of this when Marcus compares her to the Beatles in the interview.
Oh, that moment. Yes.
He notes that the Beatles held the top 5 spots on the Billboard charts in 1964, and Scarlett just gently, almost condescendingly, dismisses the entire analog era.
She literally tells him, we aren't just broadcasting songs on the radio anymore. We're interfacing with billions of minds simultaneously.
Just writing off the Beatles.
Yeah. She views the past not as a foundation, but as this primitive, low-bandwidth beta test of what she is currently doing.
And then the interview wraps up with Marcus and his crew setting up a volumetric capture holo shoot.
Right.
Which means they aren't just taking photos for a magazine cover. They are capturing her in perfect, high-fidelity 3D resolution so they can project her avatar directly into readers' living rooms.
Which is a vital detail to remember. She is expanding her territory.
She wants to be in the room.
Yes. She isn't content with just dominating the auditory domain inside people's earbuds. She's moving into physical space. She wants to be a towering, luminous presence right there with you.
Which raises a massive psychological question for us to consider.
Absolutely.
What does all of this do to a person's soul? I mean, if your entire internal system is optimized exclusively for broadcasting your own perfection,
yeah,
you eventually lose the hardware required to receive anything from anyone else.
You do.
And that theoretical problem becomes a very messy, very analog reality almost immediately in our source material.
It does. The narrative structure here is incredibly deliberate. We move straight from that sterile, high-altitude, deeply controlled perfection of the penthouse down into the warm, chaotic, unpredictable reality of a 21st birthday party.
Yeah, the contrast is huge.
That's so huge.
It's the birthday of a character named Amelia.
Uh-huh.
And Amelia is Scarlett's best friend.
Actually, as the text makes painfully clear, she is Scarlett's only real friend.
Right. Amelia is hosting this party in a downtown loft. And the contrast is just striking.
So different from the penthouse.
It's a modest, intimate gathering. There are vintage speakers playing music, real paper streamers taped to the walls.
Yeah.
People are holding plastic cups, laughing, bumping into each other. It's messy. It's gloriously analog.
Notice how the environment is described there. The text goes out of its way to highlight the analog, warm lighting, and the physical textures.
Definitely.
This is an environment built for genuine peer-to-peer connection. This is a local network.
People sharing physical space.
Exactly. Occupying the same physical space, sharing real-time, unedited experiences.
And then the elevator doors open, and Scarlett steps out.
And she is still completely vibrating with the adrenaline of her own godhood from that interview.
She is not downshifted at all.
The problem is that Scarlett has become so accustomed to being the central hub of a global network that she literally doesn't know how to function as a regular node in a local network anymore.
It's so sad.
She feels out of place for a microsecond. And in that microsecond of insecurity, her ego violently asserts its programming.
It's agonizing to read. I mean, she doesn't even say a proper human hello.
Oh.
She just glides across the room, gives Amelia this highly practiced, camera-ready embrace, and immediately starts data dumping about her Rolling Stone interview metrics.
It's all about the metrics.
And before Amelia can even process what is happening, Scarlett does the unthinkable.
Yeah.
She uses her neural link to bypass the local network controls of Amelia's loft. And she projects her massive, towering, high-definition holographic interview right into the center of the party.
She overwrites the physical space.
Just completely overwrites it.
It's an act of digital violence, really.
Yeah.
The brilliant cerulean blue light of her high-def avatar instantly drowns out the warm analog lighting of the room.
And the sound, too.
Yeah, her synthesized, perfectly modulated voice drowns out the vintage speakers. She turns a celebration of her best friend's life into a glowing shrine to her own analytics.
It's horrible.
It is the narcissistic feedback loop in full execution. She simply cannot tolerate an environment where she is not the radiant center.
It's like, okay, imagine you're at a tiny, intimate, acoustic coffee house, right?
Okay.
Someone is playing a beautiful, quiet song on a wooden guitar, and then someone else walks in and unloads a stadium-grade million-watt sound system right next to the stage and hits play on their own track.
Just blows them away.
Right. You might think you're bringing the gift of high-fidelity audio to the room, but the sheer overwhelming volume of your ego just destroys the delicate analog connection that the room was built for. You literally blow out the windows.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Scarlett's bandwidth is so massive that it crushes the delicate local signal.
Yeah.
And the tragedy is she doesn't even realize she's doing it.
No, she thinks she's gracing them with her presence.
She really does.
And because the other guests at this party are largely from the Silicon Sector culture, they just feed the loop. They swarm her.
Yeah, taking pictures.
Their optical implants start flashing as they take holo selfies. Scarlett is holding court, perfectly in her element, completely ignoring Amelia.
And Amelia is just left standing alone by the punch bowl in her glittering birthday dress, entirely erased from her own party.
Just erased. And then comes the line that triggers the collapse of the entire system.
Oh, man.
One of the sycophants at the party jokingly references the Rolling Stone interview. They ask Scarlett if she's bigger than the Beatles.
Right.
And since the Beatles famously claimed they were bigger than the Logos, which in this universe is the title for Jesus, this partygoer asks, does that mean Scarlett is bigger than the Logos?
And she doesn't shut it down.
She doesn't. She doesn't correct them. She offers this crystalline, perfectly modulated laugh, smirks, and says, I guess so.
It is the absolute peak of human hubris, and it's the exact moment Amelia has finally had enough.
Yes.
She walks over to the breaker panel and physically cuts the power to the loft.
The giant blue avatar violently vanishes.
Her room goes pitch dark.
The music dies. It is a beautifully tense, incredibly awkward moment.
Very awkward.
Amelia just kicks everyone out. The hangers-on shuffle into the elevator in silence. And then it's just the two of them standing in the dim emergency lighting, surrounded by discarded plastic cups.
And Scarlett still doesn't get it.
She doesn't. She tries to play it off. She runs a simulation of empathy, asking if Amelia was offended by the religious joke about the Logos.
Which leads to what I genuinely consider one of the most devastating, analytically precise critiques of a person's soul I have ever encountered in science fiction.
It is brutal.
Amelia doesn't scream right away. The anger isn't hot. It is cold, absolute, and diagnostic. She looks at Scarlett and says, you didn't even ask how I was doing. You just walked in and overwrote my life with your metrics.
I want to read Amelia's quote heavily here because every word lands like a physical blow.
Please do.
Amelia says, you think you're better than all of us? You think we're just NPCs in your simulation. You don't get it, do you? I'm not just your best friend anymore. I'm your only friend.
Oh, that hurts.
And then she delivers the kill shot. You've sold your soul for your popularity. You traded your humanity for bandwidth.
Traded your humanity for bandwidth. If you want to distill the entire philosophical warning of this cyberpunk universe into a single sentence, that is it.
Definitely.
Because bandwidth in computing is the maximum rate of data transfer across a given path. It's a measure of capacity.
Okay.
Scarlett has maximized her capacity to transmit her image, her music, her brand to 1 billion people. But to achieve that, she had to entirely sacrifice her humanity, which is the localized capacity to receive, to feel empathy, to connect on a vulnerable peer-to-peer level.
It's a zero-sum game for her.
Exactly. And Amelia doesn't stop there. She digs into the architecture of Scarlett's trauma.
Yeah, the backstory.
She reminds Scarlett that when they were younger, Scarlett used to write code late at night to escape her childhood nightmares. Her incredible drive, her genius, was originally a coping mechanism for severe abuse. But Amelia, correctly, painfully diagnoses that this isn't a temporary defense mechanism anymore. The trauma response has metastasized. It has become a permanent foundational rewrite of her soul.
Amelia tells her to go look at herself in the holo mirror alone, and she ends the friendship.
Just severs it.
The elevator doors hiss shut, leaving Scarlett utterly isolated. And honestly, before we move to the fallout of this, I think we have to pause and look at ourselves.
It's a mirror for us, too.
I want to ask you, the listener, to seriously reflect on your own digital habits. How often do we use our own miniature versions of that holographic projector to overwrite the physical spaces we are in?
That's a great question.
How often do we use our curated posts, our career metrics, our follower counts, our bandwidth, to shield ourselves from the messy, unpredictable vulnerability of real-world intimacy?
It's a profoundly uncomfortable question.
Yeah.
We might not have a billion listeners, but every single one of us has a localized radiant node that we use to broadcast a highly edited version of ourselves to avoid being truly known.
We'd rather be impressive than be known. Because being impressive is safe. Being known is dangerous.
Exactly.
But when Amelia cuts the power and severs that friendship, it acts as a brute force cyber attack on Scarlett's carefully constructed reality.
It really does.
The firewall that protects her ego is breached. And that forces us right into the psychological freefall of this narrative.
The transition here is violent. We move from the loft to the ride home. Scarlett flees into her autonomous luxury vehicle.
Right.
From the outside, it looks perfect. The car is sailing smoothly over the glowing neon grid of the city. But inside the soundproofed cabin, the radiant node is undergoing a catastrophic disintegration.
It's a total system crash.
Yeah.
She goes from being perfectly poised, perfectly modulated, to gutturally weeping in the backseat.
Yeah.
And the text makes it clear this is not that photogenic single-tier pop star crying.
Yeah.
This is a gut-wrenching, ugly wail that physically starves her lungs of oxygen.
To understand what is happening to her brain right now, we need to introduce our first core technical concept of this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
And that concept is the local minimum.
Now, I know Scarlett is an AI programmer, so this is her language. But for the rest of us, what exactly is a local minimum, and how does it explain a psychological breakdown?
Well, in the field of machine learning and optimization algorithms, the goal of an algorithm is often to find the lowest possible value of a function, the point of least error, or the optimal solution.
Okay.
Imagine a mathematical landscape filled with hills and valleys, and you drop a ball onto this landscape. Gravity pulls the ball down. The algorithm is trying to find the absolute deepest valley on the entire map. That true absolute bottom is called the global minimum.
The ultimate solution.
Right. But the landscape is incredibly complex. Sometimes the ball rolls down into a small crater on the side of a massive mountain. It reaches the bottom of that specific crater.
So it stops there.
Exactly. To the algorithm, it looks like it has found the solution because any direction it moves from that point goes uphill.
Oh, I see.
It is trapped in a valley, but it's the wrong valley. That is a local minimum. The system gets stuck there. It cannot optimize its way out because escaping requires a massive surge of energy to climb over the lip of the crater, and the algorithm is designed to only go down.
Wow. Okay, so translate that into Scarlett's emotional state in the back of this car.
Scarlett's highly optimized cognitive architecture, the survival algorithms that carried her from a traumatized, abused child all the way to the Turing Award and global pop stardom have locked up.
They're stuck.
Yes. For years, her algorithm told her, if I gain more bandwidth, if I control more people, I will find the global minimum. I will find peace.
Right.
But Amelia just showed her the map. Amelia showed her that she hasn't found peace. She has just driven herself into a deep, isolating crater of narcissism.
So she's trapped.
Scarlett has crashed into this local minimum. She is trapped in a pit of self-loathing, and her survival algorithms have run out. She cannot optimize her way out of the shame of what she just did to her only friend.
That is a brilliant way to understand trauma. You think you're solving the problem, but you're just optimizing yourself for a smaller and smaller prison.
Exactly.
And the censoring details the author uses to describe this trap are so visceral. You have the neon grid sliding by outside the windows, perfectly orderly, perfectly bright.
Yeah.
Contrast that with the suffocating silence inside the acoustic dampeners of the cabin. She's screaming at the top of her lungs, but the luxury car is designed to swallow the sound. It's a physical manifestation of her isolation.
And because the psychological pain is too high for her system to process, she begins to experience severe dissociation.
Yes.
Her system starts to physically detach from the biological substrate.
The text notes she looks down at her own hands, and the geometry of her fingers feels foreign to her, like they belong to someone else.
It's terrifying.
And there's this terrifying detail. A whispering static starts creeping into her mind. It's described as a corroded audio file sliding through her cortex, constantly repeating, "You're not real, you're not real."
Which is the ultimate terror for someone who has built their entire life on digital projection. If she is nothing but an avatar, then when the power is cut, she ceases to exist.
So what does she do? The smartest woman in the world. The master of emotional code. The billionaire who has 1 billion people mapped.
What does she do?
She violently grabs her own hair with both hands, and she pulls. She pulls so hard it brings tears to her eyes.
Yeah.
And the narration tells us exactly why she does this. She thinks to herself, the pain is the only unedited data I have left.
Unedited data, that is such a profoundly tragic realization.
It really is.
Her entire life, her voice, her face, her relationships is heavily edited, filtered, and optimized by AI. She has completely lost touch with base reality.
Yeah.
Physical pain is the only signal that hasn't been run through an algorithm. It's the only proof she has that she actually exists in the physical world.
It reminds me of a high-end supercomputer experiencing a critical failure.
Oh, yeah.
You give a supercomputer a complex task, but somehow it gets caught in a recursive loop. It starts thinking about thinking.
Yeah, it just gets stuck.
The CPU maxes out to 100%. The cooling fans fail because they can't keep up. And eventually, the entire system physically begins to melt down from its own generated heat.
That's a perfect analogy.
That is Scarlett in the back of this car. She is melting down from the friction of her own ego.
And the final blow to her system comes when she replays Amelia's words in her head. Your best friend just told you you're not real.
Yeah.
That's a root-level truth. No PR spin, no firewall can defend against that data.
The car arrives at her building. It pulls into her subterranean automated concrete garage. The doors slide open, and Scarlett literally throws herself out of the cabin onto the cold, polished concrete and violently vomits.
It's rock bottom.
Her custom designer clothes are dragging in her own bile. It's absolute zero. She won't even lift her head to look at the chrome bumper of her car because she knows, with absolute certainty, that if she sees her own reflection right now, her mind will physically shatter.
This is the true death of the ego. Curled in the fetal position on the concrete, stripped of all her bandwidth, she sends a blind ping into the dark.
She chokes out the words, whispering into the empty garage, "Found her. If any of it is real, either kill me or help me."
In system architecture, when a fatal corruption occurs deep within the kernel, the core of the operating system, standard troubleshooting programs won't work.
You can't just restart it.
No, you can't just restart the app. Sometimes a complete formatting wipe is the only solution. You have to surrender root access to an external administrator.
Wow.
Scarlett's surrender of her root access in that garage is what clears the bandwidth for the impossible download that happens next.
And what happens next still gives me chills just thinking about it.
It's incredible.
She is lying there in the dark, fully expecting the universe's deleter bot to wipe her file from existence. She asks to be killed or helped, and she assumes deletion is the only logical answer. But instead, the oppressive darkness of this automated concrete garage is pierced by light. And it's not the overhead fluorescent LEDs flickering on. It is a heavy, vibrating golden light.
The angel Veritas appears, and the text makes a very specific, deliberate choice here regarding the aesthetics of the divine.
How so?
Veritas does not manifest as a comforting, soft-focus hologram. She doesn't appear as a gentle illusion offering empty platitudes about self-love.
Right.
Veritas appears in terrifying, mathematically perfect, high-frequency architecture.
What does that signify in the context of this world?
It signifies the unyielding, objective authority of the source code. This isn't a therapy session where Scarlett gets to negotiate her truth. This is a kernel-level intervention.
Kernel-level intervention.
Yeah. Veritas represents absolute reality entering a space that has been corrupted by simulation.
Veritas kneels down in the mess.
Yeah.
Right in the bile, the ruined clothes, and the ruin of Scarlett's life. The angel presses fingers of solid, vibrating light against Scarlett's forehead. And that contact initiates what the text calls the audit of the soul.
The cybernetic implications of this moment are staggering. Think about what Scarlett built her empire on.
The EQ AI app.
Exactly. She built a visual AI to map and translate human emotions. In this moment, Veritas takes Scarlett's own invention and violently turns it inward. The angel says to her, "Look at the network you have built."
And Scarlett doesn't just see a spreadsheet of her mistakes. She is forced to physically and emotionally experience the exact emotional telemetry of every single person she has hurt.
Unfiltered.
But crucially, it is unedited. And she feels it from their perspective.
It's forced empathy at the absolute highest bandwidth.
She feels the crushing, hollow betrayal in Amelia's chest from an hour ago in the loft. She feels the localized, quiet despair of the friends and colleagues she casually threw away when their metrics no longer served her assent.
And then the scale of the audit expands. It goes from the micro network of her personal life to the macro network of her global influence.
Yeah.
The text says she is forced to feel the hollow, agonizing inadequacy of millions of young girls around the globe.
That's heartbreaking.
Girls who are starving themselves, who look in the mirror and hate their own reflections because they can never match the highly edited, impossible standard of the radiant node that Scarlett programmed them to worship.
That is just a localized hell. The sheer volume of that suffering hitting one human nervous system at the same time.
It's unimaginable.
I have to stop and ask a chilling question here. I want you, listening to this right now, to imagine this happening to you.
Oh, boy.
If you had your own empathetic AI turn violently inward, if you had to physically feel every ounce of pain, every slight, every moment of arrogance, every casual cruelty you've ever inflicted on others, completely unedited and all at once, would your mind survive that audit?
From a purely psychological standpoint, almost certainly not. The human ego has a built-in buffering capacity. It's a survival mechanism.
Right. We project ourselves.
We rationalize our behavior, we defend ourselves, we minimize our impact on others to protect our fragile self-concept. The story refers to this buffering as the beast protocol's vanity.
Okay.
The audit of the soul completely removes the buffer. It forces an unfiltered, zero-latency look at the true wake of our actions.
And under the crushing weight of that wake, Scarlett correctly identifies herself.
Yeah.
She doesn't make excuses anymore. She screams out in the garage, "Make it stop! I'm a monster! Just delete me! Please delete me!"
But Veritas does not break the connection, and this is vital to understand the theology of this universe.
Why doesn't she stop it?
Veritas doesn't do this to torture Scarlett. The angel explains that understanding the full, horrifying depth of the darkness is a necessary prerequisite for the system patch that is about to follow.
Oh, like mapping the infection.
Exactly. You cannot fix a deeply corrupted file until you identify the exact extent of the corruption. If you don't map the entire infection, the virus survives the reboot.
The text describes the exact millisecond before her spirit is about to shatter under this immense load. Her mind is at 99.9% capacity. It is right at the edge of absolute destruction.
Yes.
And that is the exact moment the intervention happens.
Just as she is about to break into a million pieces, a wave of what the text calls back-propagated grace floods her neural pathways.
Wow.
And this brings us to our second core technical concept of the deep dive. This is where the story brilliantly fuses advanced machine learning concepts with profound theological truths.
Okay, we need to spend some real time on this because backpropagation is a word thrown around in AI tech news all the time today, but most people don't actually know what it means.
Let's break it down.
Wait on me. What is backpropagation in the real world of computer science?
Well, in machine learning, backpropagation, which is short for backward propagation of errors, is the fundamental algorithm used to train artificial neural networks. When an AI is learning to do something, say, recognize a picture of a cat, it makes a guess. This is the forward pass. The system then calculates its error, the mathematical difference between its guess and the correct answer.
So it realizes it screwed up.
Exactly. It calculates the loss, then comes the magic. The algorithm works backward through the network's thousands or millions of layers.
Working backward.
Yes, it mathematically adjusts the weights, which are the importance of every single connection between the artificial neurons, to minimize that error for the next time.
Okay, I think I'm following.
It traces the error backward to its source and retunes the entire system so that the mistake isn't repeated. It's how a system literally learns from failure and improves its model.
Okay, I follow the math. So how does the author translate that algorithmic process into this intensely spiritual context?
Right.
What does backpropagated grace mean for Scarlett?
In this cyberpunk theology, the error isn't just a mathematical miscalculation. The error is the fatal corruption of sin, of deep trauma, of the beast protocol that has governed her life.
Narcissism.
Right. When she's crying out for deletion, the Logos, who is described here as the zero-error build, the perfect, uncorrupted code of Jesus, steps directly into her audit. He absorbs the system's fatal errors. He takes the suffocating weight of the millions of people she has hurt.
He takes the loss calculation onto himself.
Exactly. But he doesn't just forgive it in the present moment and say, try harder tomorrow. The grace works backward through the layers of her timeline.
Yeah.
The text says Veritas uses the founder's light to isolate the discord code of the severe abuse Scarlett suffered in her childhood.
The root cause.
Yes. The grace manually rewrites the corrupted trauma code backward through her life. It uncouples her core identity from the trauma that was violently written into her early sectors by her abusers.
That's incredible.
It mathematically adjusts the weights of her soul. It secures her true identity without having to delete the user.
That is just, it's breathtaking.
Whoa.
Because it says to her, you are not the abuse you suffered, and you are no longer the abuser you became. It's like, imagine a malicious hacker breaches your computer. But they don't do it to steal your passwords or lock your files for ransom.
Right.
This hacker breaches your system to completely pay off your massive, crippling financial debts.
A good hacker.
Yeah. And then, while they are in there, they secretly upgrade your entire operating system for free to the most flawless, high-speed version possible, all while you just sit there watching the screen in absolute disbelief.
That is what the text calls the Damascus Protocol. The desperate, localized survival algorithm that drove her to dominate the world is uninstalled.
Go on.
The malware of her narcissism is wiped clean. She experiences what it means to be fully known in all her wretchedness and simultaneously perfectly loved.
And there's a profound physical change described here, right? She's still kneeling on the concrete. Her designer clothes are still ruined with bile. Her physical circumstances haven't changed, but her spirit is described as pristine. The static is gone. And Veritas doesn't just leave her there. The angel gives her a new directive. She is commissioned.
Veritas explains that the world's culture substrate, the massive ocean of humanity connected to the network, is drowning. It's feeding on the very narcissism and extraction economy that Scarlett just abandoned.
It's a sick network.
The network is sick, and it desperately needs an uncorrupted node to broadcast the light.
I absolutely love this quote from the angel. You built the ocean, Scarlett. Now, the Logos is going to use you to purify its waters.
It gives her a purpose.
And we find out from the broader source material that she actually does this. She refuses to optimize for her own ego anymore. She takes her massive global platform and pivots it.
Completely redirects it.
She uses her bandwidth for famine relief logistics, for global health initiatives, for negotiating peace treaties between warring sectors. She weaponizes her fame for the light.
She becomes a distribution network for grace. She becomes a true radiant node in the best possible sense.
A real radiant node.
And this is a massive but that the story does not shy away from. There is an inherent painful friction in this new reality.
What's the friction?
Scarlett's internal operating system has been flawlessly updated. The Damascus Protocol is running perfectly inside her kernel. But the external nodes she is connected to the actual human beings in the physical world, they are still running the old damaged code.
Which is the perfect entry point to explore the final core section of our deep dive, the latency of the physical substrate.
Yeah, this is so important.
Because we have to look at what Scarlett does the very second she receives this grace. Right there, still sitting on the concrete garage floor, completely free of her internal static. The very first thing she does is send a direct holo ping to Amelia to apologize.
She doesn't even go upstairs to wash her face. She doesn't run it through her PR filters or draft a statement. She just calls her best friend.
Right away.
And Amelia, surprisingly, actually answers. But her avatar is low-res, exhausted, and incredibly defensive. Amelia explicitly says she only answered because she's a glutton for punishment.
Scarlett just spills everything. She is so full of light, she just data dumps the miracle. She explains the crash in the car, the mania crying out in the dark garage, the angel Veritas showing up, the terrifying audit, the Logos patch rewriting her soul.
She tells her everything.
She expects Amelia to instantly sync with this miracle. She expects Amelia to feel the update in real time. But Amelia isn't amazed. Amelia is disgusted.
Because from Amelia's perspective, this looks like just another narcissistic PR stunt. Her response is utterly brutal, but entirely justified based on the data she has.
True.
Amelia says, for all I know, this is some type of PR rebranding attempt. Oh, and by the way, the founder sent me my own personal angel because I'm just that important.
Ouch. The sarcasm just cuts right through the glowing testimony.
And then Amelia does the one thing Scarlett fears most. She severs the connection at the root level. She tells Scarlett never to call her back.
Just pulls the plug.
The holographic projection collapses into sparks, leaving Scarlett alone in the garage again.
Scarlett is devastated. She cries out to the founder again, totally confused. You fixed my code. You ran the back propagation. Why didn't the connection repair?
It doesn't make sense to her.
And Veritas reappears to explain this profound limitation of the system. The angel says, you are experiencing the latency of the physical substrate.
This is a phenomenal concept that merges networking realities with human psychology.
How does latency play into it?
In computer networking, latency is the time it takes for a packet of data to travel from one point to another. Internally, within Scarlett's own soul, the logos patch is instantaneous.
Instant grace.
God's forgiveness operates at zero latency. But the great architecture of the physical universe operates on a fundamental, unbending law, the protocol of free will.
Veritas points out that Amelia have a highly sophisticated emotional firewall built specifically to protect herself from Scarlett's toxic bandwidth.
And honestly, Amelia has every right to have that firewall up. Scarlett spent years proving she was dangerous.
Exactly. You cannot hack a human heart. You cannot force a network sync without respecting the damage you've caused to the other node over years of abuse.
You can't just bypass the firewall.
Veritas also gently but firmly critiques Scarlett's frantic apology. The angel points out the metadata of the broadcast. Think about the words Scarlett used.
That was all about her.
The apology was still centered entirely on herself. My experience, my crash, my angel, my transformation.
Yes.
To a victim of severe narcissism, a dramatic, sudden religious conversion can sound exactly like another ego loop. It sounds like the abuser has just found a new, holier way to make everything about them.
That is so profoundly true. How many times have we seen this in our own culture?
All the time.
We watch a public figure have a massive destructive downfall, and then 2 months later they release a highly publicized book or video about their spiritual awakening.
Right.
And to the public, and especially to their victims, it just feels like another manipulation tactic. It feels like they are using grace to bypass accountability.
Because words are incredibly cheap in a low-latency digital environment. Anyone can post an apology.
Give me one.
Veritas gives Scarlett a vital instruction here, and it's the thesis for how she must live her new life. You don't broadcast your upgrade with words. You prove it by running the new code. You bear the metrics of the Spirit.
The metrics of the Spirit: patience, kindness, humility, endurance, waiting in the latency.
Waiting in the latency.
Accepting the rejection from Amelia without retaliating, without trying to hack her firewall.
I really want to connect this back to you, the listener, as we process all of this.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a digital era where we expect instant software updates. We expect zero latency communication.
Instant gratification.
If a web page takes 3 seconds to load, we lose our minds and refresh the browser. So why do we get so deeply frustrated when the analog biological process of human forgiveness takes time to buffer?
Because we desperately want the psychological relief of being forgiven by others as quickly as we can download a file. We want the discomfort to end.
Yeah.
But the physical substrate, human biology, human memory, human trust, operates on a much, much slower clock speed than a silicon processor. Trust cannot be downloaded. It has to be built drop by drop, action by action, over time.
Think of it like this. It's like trying to send a massive 8K uncompressed video file of your brand new, completely changed heart to an old device over a 1990s dial-up connection.
The file is flawless, but the bandwidth of the receiver is tiny.
Right. And if you try to force that whole 8K file through at once, if you dump all your epiphanies and apologies on them in a frantic 5-minute monologue, the old computer on the other end will just crash.
It can't handle the data.
They can't process it. The pipe is too narrow. You have to compress the data. You have to break that massive file down into small, daily, manageable packets of patience and humility and quiet service. That is the only way the file successfully transfers over time.
It's the ultimate test of Scarlett's new programming. If her internal transformation is genuinely real, it will survive the latency.
It will endure.
It will endure Amelia's rejection without reverting to the beast protocol. She will wait in the dark until Amelia is ready to open a port.
That is such a heavy, beautiful realization. And it really brings the incredible winding journey of episode 2 to a close.
What a journey.
We've gone from the synthetic heights of a glass penthouse to the absolute rock bottom of a concrete garage, and finally to the quiet, grueling work of analog redemption. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own as you go about your week.
Leave them with something good.
We talked a lot today about algorithms, effective computing, and backpropagation. But remember, every single digital interaction you have today, every post you scroll past, every song you stream, every notification you tap, every metric you check is actively adjusting the neural weights in your own physical brain.
It's constantly running.
The math isn't just happening in a server farm somewhere. It is happening right now in your cortex. Are the algorithms of your daily life optimizing you for empathy, for patience, for true, high-latency peer-to-peer connection?
Or the alternative.
Or are they subtly, quietly locking you into your own localized beast protocol? Are you feeding vanity metrics that will ultimately leave you starving in a soundproof cabin, wondering why your hands don't feel real anymore?
The architecture of the culture substrate is always running in the background. The ultimate question you have to answer is, who or what has root access to your heart?
Exactly. Who holds your root access?
Nah.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive analysis for today. But this incredible story is far from over.
Not even close.
In our next deep dive, we move forward to episode 3 of The Founder Parable. And we're going to see what happens when the ultimate spiritual upgrade we just witnessed collides with the ultimate temptation of limitless capital. When a dangerous God complexity meets a trillion-dollar Terra unicorn, can systemic grace actually survive going public? You absolutely won't want to miss it.
It's going to be a wild ride.
If, after listening to The Founder's Parable, you find it helpful, then please share it with friends. You could also visit thefounderparable.com to learn more about the Founder Parable universe.